We want what the money gets us. We don't want the money necessarily. We want what the money gets us. You may go through an iteration where you think you want the bullshit and you want the cars and all that other fancy stuff and be able to look cool. You'll quickly figure out that none of that is worth anything. The reality of it is what you want is time. You want to be able to spend time with people and doing things that you want to do, and you want to be able to do that and not worry about whether a check's coming in or not worry about whether money's coming in. Well, the only way to do that, now it goes back to, is, oh yeah, I actually have to scale. And by scale, I mean, I got to put people and processes and leverage and automation and intention. And when all this thing happens, whether I show up or not, well, now I get to do my job versus I have to do my job.
All right, guys, welcome back to the Light It Up podcast. If you're new to this channel and you want to know everything about making money in real estate, selling, sales skills, building your business, or investing, then subscribe below and tap the bell for notifications so you can be the first to know what makes our great guests so successful.
There you go. Let's talk about adding leverage. So we've been getting a lot of calls of people asking us how we've hired virtual assistants to scale and leverage our business. So we've opened up our playbook to all of you. If you're looking to add leverage in your business, whether it's administrative support, ISA, outbound callers, go to addleverage.com and they'll be there to help you staffing your team.
All right, we're excited today. We have Kent Clothier. Kent is the CEO of Real Estate Worldwide, a multifaceted real estate education company with headquarters in Scottsdale, Arizona, San Diego, California, and Boca Raton, Florida. Kent, thank you so much for spending some time with us today.
Yeah, man, my pleasure. Glad to be here, guys.
Yeah, man.
We are excited to have you. We found you on Instagram. Your profile was really, really exciting to us, and loving some of these Instagram reels you're putting out there. So we thought we'd have you on the show and go a little bit deeper.
Yeah, let's do it.
Sounds good.
Cool. Well, we always like to start with our lightning round, and I'll let KIRO lead.
Audio Jungle.
All right. So first question for you, Ken, is what's the best advice you've ever received?
Best advice I have ever received. That's a good question. I mean, probably one of my mentors as I was growing up really pushed hard on me to make, and I still repeat it to myself every day, that good isn't good when great is expected. And basically never measure yourself looking back, only measure yourself up to your potential. And so that always really, really has stuck with me, and probably as big a reason as any why I, never settle, keep pushing.
That's powerful. Can you expand on that? Because I think a lot of people will miss the point in that.
We are constantly measuring ourselves, whether personally or professionally, looking in our rearview mirror. In other words, did I make more money this year than I did last year? Did I do better in sales this year? Did I create more revenue, more income, whatever it is, right? And anything. Did I do better than last week, last quarter, last month, whatever that looks like? And that's one way to measure, but that's effectively just measuring from the ground up. And that's a way of looking at whether I am improving. A better way to look at it is, where should I be? Who are the people that I admire? Who are the people around me that are at a place that I want to be at? And am I capable of doing that? And what are the things that I need to be doing, or I should be doing, that would get me to that level that I want to be at? And when you look at it like that, what happens is instead of constantly looking backwards and saying, well, I'm improving incrementally, the reality of it is most people fail to tap into what their true potential is. And if you understand where you are capable of being, every one of us, and the minor shifts at best that would ultimately create that outcome, it's a much better way to measure yourself. Good isn't good when great is expected. When you move the expectation, then you'd be shocked at how much more valuable that is to you as a person.
Yeah. Well, I love this because I'm reading Think and Grow Rich again. And one of the first chapters is talking about the guy who went to, he was in Orange, New Jersey. No, you know what I'm talking about. The guy who created electricity, the light bulb.
Thomas Edison?
Thomas Edison. He wanted to go work with Thomas Edison, something Barnes, JP Barnes, whatever. I'm butchering it. But then he was like, so he had so much conviction that he was going to be a partner with Edison, and he wrote there on a freight train, and he had no money. He just had a big vision of what he wanted. He wasn't basing it off of what he had performed or achieved in the past. So
Right.
that's when you said that, it clicked right away.
Yeah. I mean, that's, again, if you look at anybody that's great, if you ever were judging yourself, I mean, take just somebody, probably one of the biggest figures out there, in business today, Elon Musk. If all he ever did was look backwards and say, well, I did PayPal, or I did this, and, this is it's just, no, he clearly, probably to a fault, understands that his potential is so grand, and that he's measuring himself against a completely different set of rules than just about any other human being on the planet.
Yeah.
And it's not that he's necessarily any better, probably a lot smarter, but he isn't necessarily any better, and he certainly doesn't get any more time. But what he has figured out is that the rules of engagement are different when you look at the world through a very different lens.
Yeah. Very true.
Well said. All right, Kent, who had the most influence on you growing up?
I grew up probably my father from a very being decisive and driven standpoint, my mother from being a very compassionate and empathetic thought leader, trying to pay attention to the people that, it's one thing to be ruthless along the way, but you want to have the conviction without being ruthless. And so I think they probably had both equally amount of impact on me growing up.
I like that.
That's powerful. Would you rather have a pause button or a rewind button on life?
For sure, a pause. Yeah. Rewind, I don't see any point in having any regret on anything ever. Everything that you do in life, every moment that you get is, you're either learning or earning, one or the other. And so I'm very, very comfortable and grateful for my mistakes as much as I am of anything else in life, right? They teach you those lessons. I would hate to be where I'm at in life without those lessons. So definitely don't want to rewind anything or redo anything.
Yeah.
Every once in a while, when you're a hard driving, certainly as an entrepreneur, hard driving guy or girl, is it probably healthy every once in a while to slow down, take a breath, and try to enjoy the moment, or make some more meaningful decisions in the moment? Of course. So probably pause.
Yeah. Good one.
All right, and I'm gonna go with this one. What was the hardest decision you ever had to make?
The hardest decision I've ever had to make was probably moving away from my son. I had gone through a really challenging time and built a very successful business in my 30s. I built a company that $1.8 billion a year in annual sales by the time I was 30. And then from 17 to 30. And then spent the next 2 years, walked out of that company, kind of effectively got ran out by my partners. And we sued each other and got into all kinds of legal battles for a couple of years until the point that it completely wiped me out. And so when I had to start over, I needed to basically move back down to Florida, away from my young son at the time, because him and his mother lived in Memphis. That was definitely one of the hardest things I ever had to do. Don't regret it, because it was the right decision, but it was very challenging.
Yeah.
Tough to see the greater good in that at the time, but luckily, I was able to do that.
Yeah. Last question. If you had to spend the whole day with someone, dead or alive, who would it be and why?
A whole day.
This is KIRO's notorious question, but it's always interesting to hear what somebody says.
I would love to have had the opportunity to spend the entire day with somebody like Steve Jobs, for sure. I'm a guy that admires, most of the biographies that I read are the big thinkers out there, historically. And I've been, fascinated for years about the way that guy, or even somebody like an Elon Musk, or many others in the past, to have the kind of vision and intestinal fortitude that it takes to see the world so differently and at such scale, when others' small-mindedness keeps them from seeing that, is just fascinating to me. It's easy for us to look at somebody like a Steve Jobs or an Elon Musk through the lens of today.
Yeah.
Because we already know the outcome. But you have to go back and appreciate that when they are trying to forge ahead and build their companies and their products and their services, and whether it's a rocket or whether it's an electric car company or whether it's a revolutionary technology company, there was no playbook for that. And they had millions of people telling them they're crazy, and they were going through losing their ass every single day. And to be able to just keep pushing to then turn into some of the most successful products and services to ever be on the face of the earth is pretty fascinating on how that person ticks. So
No, 1,000%, because there's no proof of concept that you're following. You're just literally creating it as you go, which is wild.
And you have believe in it so much that you're willing to say, I will make mankind bend to my will.
Yeah.
They don't even know what they want. Like, I'm going to show them what they want. I'm just like, oh my God, it's crazy.
It is. Can you walk us through your journey? Because you're in so many different sectors and you have so many different kind of businesses and been a part of it. Can you just share with us what you built from 17 to where you are now?
Yeah, so I alluded to it earlier. When I was 17, I started a grocery arbitrage business with my father, which was nothing more than basically buying truckloads of grocery item, I should say. The manufacturers of grocery items, they sell their products for different prices in different markets, right? So Maxwell House Coffee may sell a truck or a case of Maxwell House 39-ounce coffee for $60 a case in one market, and then 800 miles down the street, they sell the exact same product for $120 a case. And so all we did was we would buy it in one market, effectively out the back door of some distributor or wholesaler or some national chain like Kroger or whoever. And we would buy it and put it on a truck and go ship it to the other market, and where it wasn't being sold on a discount, and kind of play it. So never manufactured anything, never produced anything, basically just arbitrage. And so by the time I was 23, that company was doing about 45 million a year. By the time I was 25, it was about 90, 26, it was about 300, 27, it was about 800. And by 30, it was $1.8 billion a year we were doing.
Wow.
And so along the way, there were many iterations. And one of the iterations is that we, had part of our growth as we had gotten purchased by a much larger competitor, brought me in to kind of run the entire thing. And like I said, at the age of 30, I got into a run-in. I wanted some of my equity back. And the two guys that owned the company are 40-year-old guys. And, I knew I had made them a tremendous amount of money growing the business from 800 to 1.8 billion. And they just didn't want to give me any piece of the pie back. And so I got just pissed off enough in a 5-minute conversation that literally never thought about it before. Had never thought about walking out, never thought about anything. But in that moment, it just hit me. And so I walked out of there and thought I was going to go start a competitor, without any kind of hiccups or whatever. Thought I would go and thought it was a great idea to try to pirate their employees and pirate their customers and all this kind of stuff. And before you knew it, took me 2 years to lose everything.
Wow.
And so millions and millions of dollars in the bank, living in, basically in Palm Beach, Florida, Delray Beach to be exact. Great life, living on the water, had all the traps of the luxury and all that kind of good stuff. And in 22 months, dude, I was completely wiped out. And so ended up moving in with my girlfriend at the time, who I eventually married. She became my wife. But, at that point, I was divorced. I had just lost a massive business. I was a rock star in the industry. I was literally kind of the golden child in this kind of niche industry, and had this reputation that everything I touched turned to gold, and all of that gone. And so it's pretty devastating, right? And humbling would not even begin to describe how bad that fall was. But it put me in a place where, my back was up against the wall, and I started wholesaling houses and started flipping a few houses here or there. Quickly kind of gravitated to it and figured out that I knew how to make it happen. But now that I'm getting remarried and had a new little girl on the way,
Congrats.
I also realized that, I was nothing but a glorified hustler. If I ever took my foot off the gas, or if I ever stopped making phone calls, if I ever stopped doing lead gen or buying, all the money stopped.
Yeah.
And so I had to figure out a way to put in people, processes, systems, leverage, and luckily I had done that before in another business. So I knew exactly how to do it. And so started putting it in place. And before you knew it, we were definitely one of the first companies. This is back in mid 2000s. So we were definitely one of the first people that looked at wholesaling as a real business. Most people just looked at it as a hustle, right? It's just what those guys do.
Yeah.
And we were wholesaling 300 to 500 houses a year very, very quickly.
Wow.
And so then that later turned into, me starting to show people what I was doing, because right through the Great Recession, a lot of people got slammed pretty hard in that 2008, 2009, 2010 timeframe. But that was having no impact on my business whatsoever, because I was using a methodology of I was only working with cash buyers, right? I had figured out a way to systematically go find through data, go find all the buyers in a market and reverse engineer what they were looking for and drive all my seller marketing to create that. And so I had this, my business was growing exponentially when most people were going out of business. And that got me a lot of attention, kind of put me on a lot of people's radars. And so before you knew it, I was being asked to speak all over the country, being asked to, show people what I was doing, which eventually led it to where we released our software that was created all the data and all the marketing to do all this stuff. And before we knew it, software company with 35,000 monthly users, and then an education company with 60,000 users, and then an investment company is, over here now to this day, does turnkey investing. It's my family's company called REI Nation. And so they still buy and rehab and then sell anywhere from 800 to 1,000 houses a year. And
Wow.
one of our other companies, still wholesale side of the company, still does 400 or 500 a year. And then as all of that has happened, and my profiles continue to elevate over the last 15 years, started several funds and raised, north of $100 million and invest a lot in commercial real estate, industrial, self-storage, multifamily. And then probably the thing we're most proud of is kind of what sits on top of all that is we have what's called our Boardroom Mastermind for the last 10 years, which is, 250 of the best and brightest in this entire industry all get together, several times a year and really pour into each other's business. And so it's a very cool community that has really, really helped a lot of people. But that's a little bit about how I got to where I'm at today.
It's incredible.
I think one of the things that hit me the hardest on what you just said there was, and it's something we talk about all the time on this platform, is that a lot of realtors become, highly paid technicians. When you said you first got into wholesaling and flipping homes, you realize that, you
need systems and processes.
You need the systems and processes to be able to scale. Otherwise, you're, the weakest link. And I think a lot of times I've referenced this on this platform a bunch of times where, it's not until you go on vacation for a week or you take 5 days off or something, you start realizing like, wait a second, no deals came in last week because I didn't make any calls. I didn't do any lead follow-up. I wasn't here selling the homes that I have listed or negotiating offers. And you realize you need to be able to put in those systems to scale.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, look, people, it's kind of a catch-22, right? People hear the word scale and they think bigger, right? Hey, if I'm going to scale something, I'm making it bigger. And so that sounds, to certain individuals, that sounds scary. And that sounds like something I don't necessarily want to do. The reality of it is, to your point, scaling is not necessarily about bigger from a volume perspective, although that is a byproduct of it. It's much more about purpose.
Right.
I mean, when you get into business, if you're going to take the risk as an agent or an investor or whoever, if you're going to take the risk of putting the crosshairs squarely on your back and saying, I am responsible for my income, right? Like nobody's going to control my income. I'm not going to go get a W-2. Like I'm going to take this responsibility. Well, if you're going to do that, then the risk should be worth the reward. And the only people that really do that or should be really doing that are people who have the intention of becoming financially free, because there would be no reason to take the risk of doing that and not get the reward, right? If you just want to have a job, just go work for somebody,
right?
Go get the insurance benefits, go get all the other benefits of having somebody else take the risk, and it's their job, you're just a cog in the wheel. So if you're going to take the risk, then all right, well, let's go create financial freedom. And why do we want to create financial freedom? Is because we want to create time freedom. We want what the money gets us. We don't want the money necessarily. We want what the money gets us. And you may go through an iteration where you think you want the bullshit and you want the cars and all that other fancy stuff and be able to look cool. You'll quickly figure out that none of that is worth, anything. The reality of it is what you want is time.
Right. Yeah.
You want to be able to spend time with people and doing things that you want to do. And you want to be able to do that and not worry about whether a check's coming in or not worry about whether money's coming in. Well, the only way to do that now it goes back to is, oh yeah, I actually have to scale. And by scale, I mean, I got to put people and processes and leverage and automation and intention. And when all this thing happens, whether I show up or not, well, now I get to do my job versus I have to do my job.
Right.
And that's why you want to scale.
Yeah. Right. And be able to remove yourself.
Yeah.
Yep.
If you want to. or be able to remove yourself and spend your time on things that are more valuable.
Well, yeah, exactly that, right? Because you have to value your time more than anything else to be able to scale, because you're replacing yourself with people who can probably do the task better for less. And then your income per hour increases. Now you're focusing on the more important things and so on and so forth, right?
I mean, in theory, look, first off, it's a very simple concept when you think about it like this, is that in the history of the world, nobody's ever gotten out alive.
True. Very factual.
Right?
100%.
Every single person on this podcast right now, or that will ever hear it, has an expiration date. End of discussion. Mm-hmm. And when you actually realize that, and you realize that, man, I have an expiration date, and then equally, I get a choice on what every single one of my remaining days looks like. Do I want to spend it trading dollars for hours, or do I actually want to create something that allows me to get paid and enjoy life and do the things I want to do and spend the time that I have left the way I want to spend it? Yeah. Because both things are doable.
Yeah.
And when you get super passionate about, I want to spend every one of my remaining days on my terms, and there is no nobility in sitting around and convincing myself, oh, well, this is worth it because I'm getting paid, $200 an hour to do it. Who gives a shit?
Yeah.
Right? I mean, I can assure you, if I asked anybody right now, anybody sitting in my office or where we were talking, if I said, hey, you've got 168 hours left on this planet, 7 days. That's it. You're gone in 168 hours. Okay. Might be the best news or the worst news, depending on how you look at it, right? Worst news for obvious reasons. Best news because at least you know.
Yeah.
Right? Because most people will never know. But if that's the case, now if I picked up the phone and called you and said, hey, John, KIRO, you guys are really smart. I want to buy 10 of your last 168 hours. I just want to get all the information from you. I just want to hear, I want you to I want to record it all. I want to hear everything you know about life and business. How much are one of those hours worth?
A shitload of money.
Yeah.
How about just not even for sale?
Yeah.
Right? Like there ain't no amount of money that I'm going to give you 10 of my last 168. Are you out of your mind?
Yeah.
And that should be the reality of every day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I love
like
it.
If you want to be a rock star, it should be like, dude, my hours are so valuable. Anything that I can get one of my hours back for something less than priceless is a bargain, because my hours are priceless.
Yeah.
Because I got no idea how many I got left. I could be in my last 168 right now, and so could your asses. We'd never know.
Yeah.
So why would I live any other way? And the only way you get to that place is, man, I got to fire myself as often as I can out of this, remedial shit that's in my business.
Yeah.
That must get done, but it doesn't have to be me.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Let me get out of the way, because the highest and best use of my time is one of two places. Either I'm looking to the future and continuing to build and figuring out how to do bigger and better stuff, or I'm going to spend it with the people that I love the most.
Yeah.
I'm going to be collecting memories. One of the two.
Yeah.
And when you get super dialed in like that, bro, then scaling is not even, it's never not part of the option of the conversation. Like, you have to do that.
Yeah.
There's no other way to do it. You got to get people in place and systems.
My coach gave me this quote yesterday, and it was so impactful. He said, people live two lives. One, they coast until they realize that it was almost taken from them. And then that's when they start to really live. What does that mean to you?
I mean, it's exactly that. I mean, basically, you have two lives. The one you have,
yeah,
and then the other one when you realize you only have one.
Yeah. Did you have
when you realize you only have one, I promise you will start living very differently.
Yeah. Can you share an experience that became a realization for you?
Of course. Yeah. I was, this was 12 years ago, May 2011. I was on an airplane with my, I had just spoken in Memphis, Tennessee at a event, and my wife and young daughter at the time flew to Memphis, Tennessee on a separate itinerary to join me and see me, which inevitably put us on two separate itineraries flying home. And so why that's important is because we were sitting in two different places on an airplane. So I'm sitting in 19A and they are sitting in 26E and F, and we connected through Atlanta on Delta, flying from Atlanta to West Palm Beach, probably halfway through the flight, and the entire plane fills with smoke instantaneously.
Oh, wow.
And buzzers start going off, bum, 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 bum. And then all of a sudden the flight attendant comes on and is like, oh my God, ladies and gentlemen, we're on fire. Crew, please return to your seats. Crew, return to your stations. And everybody is freaking out at this point. And about that exact same moment, the captain puts us into a nosedive, because I didn't know this then, but I now know it. If they believe a plane is on fire, they put it in effectively, trying to get it down below 13,000 feet as fast as
so
they
it
can.
doesn't blow.
Well, in case it loses pressurization, below 13,000 feet, you can still breathe. But if you're above 13,000, everybody dies. And so, unfortunately, everybody's screaming, everybody's freaking out, all this mayhem's going on. You can hear the engines winding. The only scream that I get to hear is my little 5-year-old daughter, who's
You just gave me chills.
7 rows behind me. And I can just barely see the top of her head, but I can see my wife sitting at the window and see her eyes and see the panic. And I get to hear my daughter screaming for daddy, and I can't get to her. And it was horrifying. And so that panic and chaos and mayhem, and ultimately they diverted our flight, and we made an emergency landing in Tampa. But before that even happened, the captain got on there and said, ladies and gentlemen, we're being diverted. They have cleared the jetway for us. We're going to fly by the tower to make sure our landing gear is down. And then you're going to hear a command. You need to follow the instructions of the flight crew, but you're going to hear brace for impact, brace for impact, brace for impact.
Holy crap.
And, none of that you want to hear on an airplane. In all of that chaos, to this day, I still carry around a selfie video that I recorded to myself or recorded to my son of me saying goodbye. All that mayhem. And you can see the smoke and you can see the mask. And I'm literally saying, Blake, if they find this, just know that I'm thinking of you, son. And I wish I was with you right now. Right. And so very, very humbling, crazy moment. Now, clearly we landed, and clearly they got us off the plane, and fire trucks came out and everything else. And long story short, they wanted us to get back on the plane, and I was like, hell no. I've been in the car, and I drove to Tampa.
Yeah.
I drove to West Palm, but it was definitely, that was one of those hardcore moments when you realize just how precious all of this really is, right? And it can be gone in a second. You can lose $1 billion business in a split-second decision. You can think you got it all figured out, and suddenly be on a 30,000 foot plane, praying to God that this isn't it. And you don't want to be in any of those situations. Like, you want to absolutely realize that this is the moment right now, and it's all any of us are promised, and make the most of it. And what is the nobility in playing small? Why would you do that? There are people sitting around listening to this podcast that are acting like victims, and they're just not. If you're walking around with $1,000 phone and you're listening to a podcast, or $1,000 laptop and watching it on YouTube, or whatever the hell you're doing, bro, there are 3 billion people on the planet that don't have access to clean water or clean sanitation, right? There's 700,000 people in the United States right now in a hospital bed waiting to die. And you want to think you're a victim? They're real victims. Like, if you woke up today, you got the opportunity to listen to a podcast, you're breathing, you're healthy, you live in the greatest country at the greatest time, where it's easier than it's ever been to make money instantaneously. You got YouTubers that are making $30 million a year for doing,
Videos.
putting out videos.
Yeah.
Don't talk to me about being a victim. Like, if you want something in this life, go get it.
Yeah.
But get super dialed in and intentional about how that happens. And it is never going to happen by trading hours for dollars. Because there's nothing special about guys like me or guys like you. Like, we're just normal people. We just decided to go a little bit further than most. And that's what, most people are trapped by the dogma of somebody else telling them what they can or can't do. And they don't realize, dude, it's a decision. Just go and make the most of the moments you got. It's that simple.
Yeah.
And figure it out as you go. Because I think so many people we come across, or so many people that are, at least in our industry, think they have to get it all dialed in or get it all figured out before they start. And that
you know how many overeducated broke people there are in this industry?
A lot.
Exactly.
Just the majority.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. And equally, do you know how many, unbelievably successful dipshits there are?
It's true.
More than most. I mean, I would fall into that category. I barely graduated high school. I mean, you rarely get the opportunity to get it all figured out before you actually go take any risk, right?
Yeah.
And so it's not about more education. It's about appreciating the moment and taking action in the moment.
Yeah, that's so powerful. There was a recent debate that I was in. We were talking about mindset, and the one of the lead guys was just basically saying, he's like, I understand this mindset stuff, but I just don't believe in this shit, because when you're really, really rich, you don't have a mindset issue. it's when things are not going so well and you're not taking action, you're worried about your mindset to like be okay with the shit.
Yeah, that's absolutely not true. Yeah, that's just somebody who clearly has no idea what the hell they're even talking about. I mean, that's back to that victim mentality. That is basically somebody who's making an excuse for themselves,
Right,
by in some way saying, well, it's easy for you to have that opinion because you're rich. Well, bitch, I ain't always been rich. Like I've had to work my ass off to get where I'm at, and I work every day for it. And I don't work because I have to. I work because I get to.
Yeah.
Because man, how irresponsible would it be to be so blessed in life and to have such talents and gifts and have so many others that are not, talented or are not blessed with those gifts, and that are just, I mean, dude, just go look at the news. Hundreds of thousands of people risk their lives to cross borders to get into this country.
right.
Like literally, right? And here we are, we were just lucky sperm club. We just happen to be born here.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And
we take it for granted every day.
Yeah. How dare you not go with everything you've got every single day? And I don't give a shit how much money you've got. The mindset comes from, when you get to a certain level, is you'll go talk to the most successful people in the world. The mindset they have to stay in, or that they really pride themselves, is they don't have a fear of failure. So, most people, when they're starting, their big fear is failure. It's either a fear of failure or a fear of judgment. Right? That's what it is. They think that somebody's going to say something bad about it, and just all this dumb shit. The most successful people in the world do not have that. What they absolutely have is a fear of regret.
I like that.
Am I doing everything I can with all of the gifts that I've been given, with all the wisdom I've gained, with all the knowledge, with all the impact I can create in the world, and all the ways I can do more and help more? I mean, you don't want to walk out with regret, right? And again, like I said, everybody's got an expiration date. The last place you want to be is sitting on that bed and saying, man, just wish I could have done one more thing. Nobody wants to go out like that.
Yeah.
So that's where the mindset does come in.
That's powerful, man. I can't help but think about Phil Knight. He wrote a book, Shoe Dogs.
Shoe Dog, yeah.
In his last chapter, he talks about, they talk about regrets. He's like, regrets, yeah, like some regrets about signing certain people. But he's like, my biggest regret and my secret regret is not being able to re-experience all of those things all over again.
That's interesting.
Right? Yeah. So like he lived a life without regret to the point where he wants to relive that whole thing. That was like just so powerful. That's so true.
But nobody gets to go backwards. The only thing we get to control is this day, right?
Yeah.
Think about it. The future doesn't exist. It doesn't exist right now because we're not in the future. We're in the present. The past is gone. It doesn't exist anymore. The future doesn't exist. So this is all you got.
Yeah.
And why would you not, to his point, try to make the most of every moment that you got, to the point where you have no regret? Like, I know I went as hard as I could go in every moment that I possibly could.
Yeah.
And by hard, I don't mean like working your ass off. I mean like just plain full out, like in life. Your kids want to go play with you, go do it. Your wife wants to do something, go do it. You want to go on a trip, go do whatever that is. Just be present.
Yeah, no, that's powerful. I love how you didn't talk about scaling, but this is like, a lot of this was about mindset and getting everything tuned up. One of the sayings that we were taught is that you don't achieve a certain status by the goals that you set. It's by the systems that you have in place. And everything that you have.
Say it one more time.
You don't raise to a certain status or you don't reach a certain milestone by the goals you set. It's by the systems you have in place. So you raise to the level of your systems. How does someone begin to start wanting to scale?
Well, you first have to embrace the biggest gap to navigate is going from hustler to CEO.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And so if you want to become the CEO of your life, you want to become the CEO of your business, your organization, whatever it is. And I just mean that figuratively. I don't mean that necessarily in title, but I mean, like, I want to be the one that's in control of my organization, my company, whatever. Like, I want to take control. Then you have to understand that in order for the CEO to appear, the hustler must die.
I like that.
And that is really hard.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine if you are an agent and you're making $1 million a year and you have a team and you got, 4 or 5 guys around you and, oh, my team is doing $1 million in commissions. But my personal production is 890,000 of it.
Yeah.
So no, like your team is a joke. You are directly responsible for 90% of that income. Right. And so that's the hustler that's trying to be the CEO, but can't figure out how to put in the systems, how to train the people, how to hold them accountable, what is the KPIs, what is the onboarding process, what is the meeting cadence, what is the comp schedule, what are the things that actually, and because that hustler is so fearful of going backwards in comp, then the CEO doesn't really get a seat at the table. It's kind of like being a CEO in title only, by proxy. In order for the true CEO to come out sooner rather than later, the hustler has to die. And what does that mean? That means that what got you here won't get you there. The hustler side of your brain, you have to understand the way our brains are wired. If you're making significant money, that means that, number one, congratulations, because you'll never be broke, because you have the skills to make money, period. Nobody can ever take that away from you. But the way your brain works is you're getting that dopamine hit and that adrenaline hit, and those synapses have been built because our brain cannot process all the information that comes at us every single day, right? So it forms synapses. It says, hey, if I take this action, I get this result. Oh, I want to make a $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 commission. I know the brain automatically knows, hey, you need to go make this amount of call. These are the things that Kent must do, KIRO must do. Like, these are the things that we know creates that outcome. And then ultimately our brain craves the dopamine hit, right? And so it's like, hey man, just do more of this and you'll get this. Yeah. Well, then you got this other side of your brain coming along and says, I want to build a business and I have to be disciplined enough to turn down that part of my brain that's craving the dopamine hit. It's just like, quitting smoking or, overeat. Like, I got to turn off that craving and I've got to turn up and be disciplined. And whether it's working out or whatever it is, I got to be disciplined and actually put the systems, put the process, be committed to this thing, because long-term, this is really what I want, but I've got to ignore this short-term gain. As long as I keep allowing the hustler side of my brain to jump in and say, hey, everybody out of the way. Nobody can do this as good as I can. Yep. Oh, we need some sales. But just give me the phone, bitches. I got this. I'm the rainmaker. Let's go. That guy, that's the hustler trying to just always jump in, always fighting for a seat at the table, because your brain knows what it gets when it does that.
Yeah.
And to train your brain that, hey, we're going to get that same dopamine hit. It's going to be a little bit long before we get there, but we're going to get it from doing this other thing over here. And instead of doing $1 million a year, we're going to start doing $5 million a year, and you're not going to have to do any of it. That is a really, really challenging thing to navigate. But it is every single entrepreneur on the planet has had to do that.
Yeah.
If they've built a really big business. I don't care who they are.
That just hit me, man. You hit the nail on the head. And it's tough because all these things went through my head just now. I mean, one of them is, of course, when you do pull yourself out of making those calls or going on the appointments, when we're talking about real estate specific businesses, and then somebody comes back with, let's say, less desirable results than maybe what you would have done, you immediately want to jump back in, right? Or when the market goes down and things are a little bit more, challenging, and those conversations are more challenging, and they come back without the listing agreement signed, and you say, well, shit, if I were on that appointment, I probably would have gotten it signed. So now all these things are going through your head, and you're saying, well, maybe I got to get, put my jersey back on and get back on the field, especially in a challenging environment. But there's always going to be that excuse. Always.
Well, look, I mean, you're not wrong here. I mean, there's a time and a place for everything. And certainly when the market, specific in real estate, gets a little challenging, I'm not going to sit here and sit on my high horse with you guys at all and say, hey, sometimes you got to be the player coach and you got to jump back in and do what you got to do. Of course, right? I mean, like you don't want to die on the hill in principle. So there are certainly times and places you've got to do that, but largely, big picture, 3, 5, 10-year timeframes, the idea is you've got to be extremely intentional to become a great leader.
Yeah.
And you've got to become extremely intentional to become a great CEO. That is not going to happen by just showing up and changing some business cards, and your personal production, is really 90% of the revenue. You're CEO of jack shit at that point, right? Like what you are as a CEO of your business, which isn't a real business, because if you want to know if it's a business, like you said earlier, just leave.
Yeah.
And if there's more money in your bank account, a month from now, or 2 months from now, or 3 months from now, when you get back, then you might have a business. If there is less money in your bank account in 90 days than when you left, your ass owns a job. And
highly paid technician.
That's right. And so now there's the opportunity. Is okay, I got to acquire the skills. I got to get around the people who know how to get this done. I got to get those, think of it like this. You guys are successful at what you do, but when you first walked in to do your podcast, you didn't know anything.
Right.
Like, you were just like everybody else. The first time they do a podcast, they're bumbling idiots. You go look at your first show versus your 120 show. There's no doubt you guys have become more polished, and you're much more comfortable with it, and you understand how to do it better than you've ever done it. Right. That's a fair statement.
Sure.
And the same thing is true when you came into the real estate space, when you were agents. Like, the first week was very different than where you are today. The expectation for becoming a great CEO and a great leader should be the same. I have to acquire better skills. I have to get trained. I got to get around the people that do this on a constant basis. I've got to gain their wisdom, got to gain access to their knowledge. I've got to understand what are the unique aspects of it, the tricks, the hack, the things that will help me compress my learning curve. But you're not going to get it by just continuing to do what you're doing now. Just like you wouldn't do, there was I'm sure you went on and interviewed some people to figure out how to become a great podcast. I'm sure you worked with mentors on figuring out how to become great at becoming great agents. I mean, it's the exact same thing for becoming a great leader.
Yeah.
So you acquire the leadership skills, you kill off the hustler side. What's another skill that you would need to learn right after leadership?
Well, part of becoming a great leader, an aspect of it that most ignore, is understanding on how to become bankable. And what that means is that a lot of people will go from hustler to quote unquote CEO. So now I've got some people working for me, we're making some real money, but they have never taken the time to understand the financials. They don't know how to read a balance sheet. They don't know how to read a cash flow statement. They don't know how to read a profit and loss statement. They have no idea, what it really means in the big world. And so there's a lot of that knowledge gap right there. They give themselves the same kind of thing we were talking about earlier. They give themselves this kind of excuse of, I'm not really good at math, or that's somebody else's job, or whatever. And probably one of the biggest and dumbest mistakes that people make, because the faster you gain that knowledge, especially in real estate, the quicker you realize the enterprise value that you could be building inside of your own organization, where it is actually worth something and it's a sellable asset. But equally, and if you can go and take a few properties down every single year and build real equity and build a really healthy balance sheet, and look up in 3 to 5 years and have, a couple $1 million in equity sitting on your balance sheet, it will change your life forever. Because you effectively have this asset that the banks absolutely understand, and you are highly bankable, which clearly, if the banks are willing to loan you money to grow your business and grow your net worth, you want that opportunity.
Yeah.
But if you don't, understand the financial asset. I mean, just look at somebody like Grant Cardone, right? Who's a friend that, this guy was a raving dipshit forever. And he'll be the first to tell you, and understood the mechanics of selling, right? And so he sold his trainings, and he was, one of the best at it. But it wasn't until he really understood 10, 12 years ago, the power of that balance sheet, the power of, oh my God, if I can go and get millions of dollars of leverage, I can take down an asset, I can improve it, I can create tens of millions of dollars in net worth. And so now it starts growing exponentially. Now that $10 million I can use to leverage it and go up and up and up. And, less than a decade going by, billions of dollars in real estate and half that on it, and absolutely create a net worth that's, by some estimates, a couple $1 billion. That is because he understands the power of the financial side of it. He was a high income earner before and had successful businesses before. But when he really understood the power of the financial side of it, I mean, we all kind of witnessed it. We watched him live on social media, just go hard in the paint and go put those funds together and go raise a lot of capital and go take down like all this has just happened in the last 10 years.
Wild. Yeah. Wild what he's done.
It's crazy.
So the faster you understand the power of becoming bankable, and I don't mean bankable necessarily from a bank. I mean bankable like investors or institutions will look at, you have assets that we want to be a part of.
Yeah. That's strong. Damn.
Awesome, Kent. Well, this has been terrific. Thank you so much, man. I think people will find this really, really beneficial. Not just real estate people, but
any entrepreneur.
Any entrepreneur. Yeah. And that's how we've been trying to transition this podcast. We've done 130 something episodes and we've now sort of like shifted into this investor sort of platform and more entrepreneurial sort of platform just because I guess we're tired of talking to realtors. You said a lot today that certainly hit home for me specifically, and I think a lot of people will connect with it. Because we do get stuck. My pleasure, guys. We do get stuck in that hamster wheel of just trying to, chase the next deal, and that's unfortunately the what happens sometimes in the sales business. But
you can't chase
that's that dopamine hit. Yeah, it's that dopamine hit, right? We all crave it. Nothing wrong with it, but if you want to get to the next level, you got to figure out how to get it over on another part of the business, not just on those transactional side.
We had a coach years ago who just said you become addicted to the way that you earn income, right? Is that how he said it?
Yeah.
And it's sort of hard to unlearn that sometimes because it's always your fallback. You're like, well, you dabble into something else and you say, hey, I can make money from this, like growing a team, like the example you gave before. And maybe when things don't work out or doesn't work out immediately, and we become impatient. I think some of the best salespeople in the world are impatient. You become impatient and you sort of just say, hey, shit, should I teeter back to what I know and get back to that because I know I could get that quick hit, like you said.
It's what I call running home to mama.
Running home to mama.
We all do it. Is that we all have that mama we can run home to that we know is going to make us feel good, but man, it takes a lot of discipline, a lot of soul searching, and it takes a plan. But I'll leave you guys with this: is that think about it like this. If I told you guys to come out to my office out here in La Jolla, California, it wouldn't just stop there. You would naturally ask me, hey, Kent, what's the address? Right? And whether you plugged it in an Uber or a rental car, whatever, if you just think about it for a second, why would you do that?
To know where we're going.
Know where you're going. And, the alternative, what are you going to do? Drive up and down the streets of San Diego and hope you see my name out on the door? And you'd sound like a complete dipshit if you were trying to do something like that, right?
Yeah.
But so these trivial things, whether it's going to the grocery store and making a list or, putting a destination in our GPS, we do this every single day. What most people don't do is they don't do it with their business or their life.
Yeah.
They don't sit down and say, this is where I want to be. And then here's where I'm at. Here's the origin. Here's the destination. What are the turn-by-turn directions to get there on my GPS? And what they're doing is they're driving up and down the street randomly and saying, well, I think I'll just know what success looks like when I get to it. And along the way, I'll do some transactions because it makes me feel good. Right. And maybe I'll do a couple like this and a couple like that. And somehow that feels like success when the reality is that they have no idea if they're on the path to actually what they want out of life because they never defined what they want out of life.
It's true.
And if you define it, you've heard me say this a couple of times, you get super intentional and super disciplined. Like if you actually define where you want to be, you'd be shocked how the world will get the hell out of your way and start serving it up to you with the relationships and people and contacts and resources. But you will be stuck in the transaction game forever if you don't define it because it's all you know.
Damn. Well said. Awesome.
Ken, if someone wants to reach out to you, what's the best way to do so?
Instagram is probably the easiest way, man. At Kent Clothier, or you can always go to kentclothier.com. CLOTHIER.
Love it.
Awesome. Well, thank you again for spending some time with us. We really do appreciate it. And we'll certainly tag you and ask you to collaborate once we release everything on Instagram and YouTube.
All right, man. Take care. See you guys.
Thank you. Take care.